Welcome to a place where every story cuts deeper than appearances, and every twist exposes the truth no one dared to speak. Here, the ordinary becomes extraordinary as family secrets, hidden betrayals, and shocking revelations come to light in ways you'll never see coming. Imagine a world where victories are illusions, trust is fragile, and the people closest can turn into the most unexpected enemies. From the courtroom to the living room, from the possessions he thought he owned to the power he never understood. These stories take you on an emotional roller coaster of strategy, revenge, and raw emotions. Every secret, every overlooked detail, and every carefully laid plan unravels to reveal the shocking realities hiding behind smiles and celebrations. Stick around if you're ready to dive into mesmerizing family dramas, heart-stopping betrayals, and secrets that change everything. Every detail had seemed so small at the time. The way certain bills were rearranged, how a few assets were quietly signed over, and how promises were taken at face value. Each choice appeared innocent, almost negligible, but beneath the surface, every move had been carefully orchestrated. The divorce papers might have given him the illusion of victory, the sense that he had taken everything, but in truth, the ground beneath him was far more unstable than he realized. As the proceedings unfolded, what seemed like generosity had been masked as compliance. The house he proudly claimed, thinking it was the ultimate trophy, was laced with secrets he never imagined. Hidden financial documents that revealed mismanaged investments he had ignored, and private accounts set aside that ensured the real control remained just out of reach. He had counted the material possessions, the furniture, the accounts, and even the car as if they were the full measure of triumph, never suspecting that the most significant things, power, knowledge, leverage, were still quietly slipping through his fingers. Family and friends had been unknowingly complicit, witnessing his supposed triumph with admiration. No one saw the intricate planning behind the calm, collected facade. Every decision he made, every demand he voiced, fed right into the plan that had already been set in motion. It wasn't just about reclaiming what had been taken, it was about revealing the emptiness in the victories he so proudly displayed. His laughter, once confident in court, gradually faded as tiny inconsistencies began to emerge. Documents he had dismissed, conversations he had ignored, and relationships he had underestimated started surfacing, each one quietly shifting the balance of power. By the time the final papers were signed, the illusion of control had already dissolved. What he thought was dominance was in fact the beginning of a reckoning. Each asset he believed he had won became a reminder of his oversight, and every carefully counted possession revealed only how blind he had been to the true stakes of the game. He had taken everything he could see, but in the end, what really mattered was what he never even considered, what he had no idea he was losing. Every courtroom win felt like a step closer to triumph, but each victory quietly masked deeper truths. What had seemed like power, the signed papers, the settlements, the public acknowledgement of control, was only a surface illusion. He walked out of each hearing with the confidence of a man who believed he had outmaneuvered every obstacle, but he never realized that every move he celebrated was already turning against him. The financial accounts he thought he dominated were entwined with hidden clauses, subtle restrictions, and quiet safeguards that he had overlooked in his rush to claim victory. The house, the cars, even the smallest assets that he gleefully accepted came with strings he couldn't see. Friends and family watched his celebrations, unaware that the real story had been unfolding behind the scenes, a story in which he had been blind from the very beginning. As the days passed, small cracks began to appear. An old document here, an overlooked conversation there, subtle hints that things were not as simple as they seemed. Each revelation was a quiet shock, exposing the layers of misjudgment he had built his confidence upon. The control he had assumed he wielded became a trap, revealing that his triumphs were shallow victories, masking the fact that the real power had been quietly shifted beyond his grasp. Emotions ran deeper than anyone could see, simmering beneath every agreement and every signed sheet of paper. What he had celebrated as a conquest of law and strategy was, in reality, a carefully designed labyrinth in which he had unknowingly become ensnared. Every demand he had made, every taunt he had thrown in court, and every smug smile he had worn now reflected back at him in the emptiness of what he had truly gained, or failed to gain. By the time the final verdict settled, the illusion had fully unraveled. Every victory he had relied upon revealed its true nature, a hollow triumph, a fleeting moment of confidence overshadowed by the consequences he had never anticipated. The very choices he thought were his path to dominance had become the chains of his downfall. What was believed to be power had been nothing more than the first step in the reckoning he never saw coming. What appeared to outsiders as a straightforward divorce was anything but simple. Beneath the polished surface of courtrooms and legal documents, a complex web of alliances, betrayals, and hidden agendas was quietly unraveling. Those he trusted most, family, friends, even those he believed were loyal, were quietly revealing their true colors. Every conversation, every offhand remark held a meaning he had failed to recognize, and each revelation struck harder than the last. The ones he counted on to support him were quietly aligned elsewhere, whispering truths he had been too arrogant to suspect. Every property he had assumed he fully controlled, every bank account he believed he dominated, was entangled in layers of manipulation that had been in motion long before the divorce began. Emotions ran high, raw, and unfiltered, breaking through the polite veneers that he had relied upon to measure his victories. It wasn't just legal papers that determined the outcome. It was the invisible currents of trust and deceit swirling around him, currents he had never learned to navigate. Shocking confrontations emerged at the most unexpected moments. Family members who had once smiled in apparent solidarity revealed their real loyalties, their actions quietly undermining what he thought was total dominance. Alliances shifted overnight, quietly redrawing the map of power in ways he could not anticipate. Every confident step forward he took in court was met with unseen resistance. Every smug calculation met with subtle sabotage. He believed he was winning, but the labyrinth had already been constructed, and he was walking blindly into its center. With every turn, the truth became more undeniable. What seemed like a divorce measured in possessions and legal triumphs was actually a battle of perception, intellect, and hidden influence. The more he celebrated, the more the reality of his miscalculations revealed itself. The victories he had assumed were absolute were, in fact, precarious, teetering on the edge of collapse. By the time the final documents were signed, the full picture was clear. What had seemed like control and clarity was nothing more than an illusion shattered by the very people he had believed were on his side. The labyrinth of betrayal had claimed every ounce of his confidence, leaving him exposed to the truths he had refused to see. He thought the divorce had left him with everything that mattered: property, money, and the illusion of control, but the truth was far more complicated. Every asset he had claimed, every victory he had celebrated was only surface value, a shallow measure of what he truly believed he had won. Behind the scenes, carefully hidden truths began to emerge, truths that no courtroom could measure and no signed paper could erase. The real power had never been tangible. It had always existed in leverage, knowledge, and quiet strategy he had never noticed. Decisions he thought were irreversible turned against him in ways he could not have imagined. Old agreements, forgotten clauses, and carefully maintained records quietly shifted the balance. The influence he believed he had been exerting was reversed, quietly stripped from his grasp by the very systems he thought he controlled. Each revelation chipped away at his confidence, revealing that triumph had been a mirage, and the victories he celebrated were hollow. It was not brute force or legal cunning that determined the outcome. It was patience, intellect, and the ability to stay steps ahead while he flaunted his assumed dominance. People who had seemed indifferent or distant suddenly became key players, their loyalty and insight quietly amplifying the impact of what had been carefully prepared over time. Every taunt he had thrown, every boastful smile he had worn, only made his eventual exposure all the more devastating. The more he tried to assert control over what he had taken, the clearer it became that the real influence had never been his to hold. His assumptions about power, success, and ownership were shattered piece by piece as each hidden truth surfaced. Emotional resilience, careful planning, and a long memory for past betrayals revealed a larger picture he had been too blind to see. The tables had turned without him realizing it, and the final outcome was nothing like what he had expected. When the dust settled, it was undeniable. Every material gain he had secured was overshadowed by the invisible victories that had been quietly achieved in the shadows. What he thought he had taken was only surface deep, and the real triumph belonged to the one who had never underestimated the weight of secrets, strategy, and patience. The divorce had ended, but the reckoning had only just begun. If this story left you shocked, inspired, or questioning everything you thought you knew, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable tales. Every week, we uncover hidden betrayals, emotional roller coasters, and secrets that expose the real truths behind family, love, and revenge. Don't miss the next twist. Turn on the notifications and join us as we reveal the stories that everyone else wishes would stay hidden.